Welcome back, everyone, to the Bush League Huddle Fantasy Football Podcast. I'm once again your host, Nacc, and joined by my two beautiful co-hosts, Raj and Fab.
Wow.
Flattery will get you nowhere, Nacc.
man.
Flattery will get you nowhere.
Well, week 2 is behind us, guys. Monday Nighter started off very, very slow, but had a great ending. So if you went to bed early, you missed quite an ending to that game. Kirk Cousins led a game-winning TD drive with a minute 39 seconds left in the fourth quarter after some questionable coaching decisions by the Eagles. Luckily, though, we came away from that game without any more significant injuries, which is a huge plus. Although we did find out during the game that A.J. Brown is likely to miss a couple more games while dealing with that hamstring issue. And just one quick injury to go over. Just right before the recording tonight, we found out that the Dolphins did in fact place Tua on IR. So he will be sidelined for a minimum of 4 weeks while they figure out the concussion issues. Guys, once again, please remember to follow us on all social media platforms: Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, and again, subscribe to our YouTube channel. So we're just going to dive in. Quick recap of the Monday night game. What are your thoughts on the game, guys? Did the Falcons win or did the Eagles lose?
The Eagles lost. Like, the Falcons should not have had. First of all, props to Kirk Cousins, because that last game-winning drive was really nice, super efficient, like very high tempo, a lot of play action in there, a lot of movement, which was nice to see because they had no movement in their offense in the first week. And even Kirk looked like Kirk of old a little bit too, which was kind of what you want to see. Sucks for Saquon Barkley. It sucks for that pass that he should have caught there, but I read a stat somewhere, and this is not to throw shade at Saquon Barkley, but like he has like he's one of the running backs that are very prone to drop passes in the NFL.
Yep.
And as a Giants fan, I was actually surprised to see that stat, but it is what it is. It sucks for him. Obviously, the Eagles lost. The Falcons, I don't think, won because they should not have had that drive at the end. But still, props to Kirk Cousins. Like, he had the opportunity, he got it done. It's nice to see Drake London get that touchdown too at the very end there. But
It's great to see Kyle Pitts play well too.
Yeah.
Kyle Pitts had a
great
what
to
was
see
his
he played
box
well
score?
too.
What was his box score? Hold on a second.
But they played so soft at the end. Like
The Eagles.
Yeah.
What was that
Yeah.
defense at the end? That was like
Exactly.
That was
Yeah.
prevent on steroids. Like, what were they thinking? Like,
That's
they
Yeah,
just,
they left him
Fangio
way
defense.
too much space.
yeah,
That's the
that
big
was
Fangio
that
defense.
was
Yeah.
terrible defense at the end. Like, what was I?
Their
I
safeties were
I was
super
so
deep.
shocked after the first couple of
But
chunk plays. I'm like, okay, they got to play them a little tighter here now. No,
Yeah.
they just let them. They literally again, give Kirk Cousins his flowers, like you said. He marched him
Mhm.
down the field, but man, like, what were like they were just giving him easy throws right to the
yeah,
sideline. Like, they weren't even protecting the sideline. Like, no
exactly.
timeouts, guys. Like, come
Yeah.
on.
If you guys remember, Jalen Ramsey was really, really pissed with the way Vic Fangio called defense last year for the Dolphins, and a lot of the Dolphins players were very happy that he was not going to be the defensive coordinator anymore. That was the main point I had, was lack of Eagles pass rush, and I had even I was telling some people to choose the Eagles in their Survivor, because the way the Falcons offensive line looked in week 1 and the way Cousins looked in week 1, I thought Jalen Carter and that group was going to feast on the Falcons offensive line. So,
And did I not mention that the offensive line for the Falcons was due for a bounce back game? And I think that's what
100%.
happened, right?
Yeah. They're a good group.
A lot of things
I
change
think
after week
also,
1, right? Like, a
it
lot
was
of
good to
those
see
teams get the jitters out. Like, Nacc, you said it, I think it was last episode, like, week 1 now is almost perceived to be like the 4th preseason game, So you kind of, maybe by week 2, you start to see the teams as they're supposed to be for the rest of the season. Hopefully that's the case, especially for the Falcons, because I know there's a lot of stock involved. And there's a lot of high expectations for them, and especially in that division, which is now going to be very exciting to watch. But hopefully this continues for the Falcons.
I thought Jalen Hurts looked better. He looked, and it's funny, after our show yesterday, we talked about how Jalen Hurts looks.
Yeah, he was slow.
He looked much faster, more decisive running. I thought more confident, and I thought his throwing was quite good as well. So I think that bodes well. I think Sirianni is one of those coaches that is he if it starts slowly, he's going to be on the hot seat because some of the decision making, whether it was to throw the ball, which I'm okay with, but take the points early on, and if you're going to go for it, if you're going to run the ball, if you're going to pass it to Saquon at that situation, just go for the fourth down, man.
But
Go for the fourth down. Like,
it was 3rd and 4, right? That
yeah,
was the down. I think it
exactly.
was
Yeah,
3rd and
third and
4.
3, 3rd and 4.
And that's what
Yeah.
everyone was saying. They said even if you ran with Saquon and he got you 3 yards, you guys were so confident and you used your tush
Tush push.
push
Yeah,
like to such a. I think they were 3 for 3 on the night or 4 for 4 on the night with the tush push, including a touchdown.
Mhm.
So I was like, why wouldn't they have done that? Plus,
yeah,
the clock would have kept going. So
exactly.
like, there's no need. There's no need. Kirk Cousins would have had what? Even if they were stopped and they kick a field goal, I think Kirk Cousins they said would have had like less than 30 seconds left to go down the
Yeah,
field and kick a touchdown after it was all said and done. So it was very, very, very weird. Again, he went. I like when they're aggressive coaches. You went for the pass to throw. It didn't work. Like we'd be having a completely different conversation if Saquon would have caught that ball because it
yeah.
would have stayed in bounds. He would have got a first down, a kneel down, 2 kneel downs, and the game was over. But again, to your point, Raj, I think early on you've got to kick the field goal. You got to get the points. You can't take points for granted, especially in the NFL. No matter where you are, but uh, it was a weird game management. And you know what, the last 9 games the Eagles are 2-7, guys. So everyone looks at the logo and they think they're supposed to be dominant and all that stuff, but
They blow a
I don't
ton of
know.
fourth quarter leads, man. In
They
that
do.
in that frame in that time
They
frame.
do, and it's inexcusable. And that one at home last night was definitely
Yeah,
inexcusable, and that's on the coach.
yeah. Guys, I'm
Such a
curious. What did
shame.
you
What a
think of
shame. What a shame.
what, Fab? We're not winning the division. It
It
doesn't
doesn't matter.
matter.
Just because
It
we're not
doesn't
winning the
matter.
division, I
What
still want everyone else to lose.
what did you guys think of Jason Kelce? Did you agree that
That was
it was overexposure?
in what sense?
Like everyone was,
But like,
Sports Illustrated had something. I think they had like an article saying how it was way too much overexposure for Jason Kelce. It was way over the top. It felt like it was a pro Eagles broadcast yesterday.
ah,
Yeah.
guys, they paid him for that, right? Because the kind of guy that he is, pro Eagles. Like he was a former Eagle. He just retired. Like the ink on the retirement papers is not even dry yet. Like he had fun. I enjoyed the broadcast, man. I,
Yeah,
I
I
enjoyed
like Jason
Jason
Kelsey. I
Kelsey.
think
Like
he's a good personality too on air. I don't think he's like you could do far worse than Jason Kelsey. I thought he was enjoyable to listen to, quite frankly. And I think there was like one of the pregame little festivals that they have or whatever. Like he was out there like in some pregame drip. He was in like a little Gucci
He was
suit and
on
just like
one.
yeah,
dancing.
He was on one.
that
Like
was
he's
so
fun,
cool.
man. Like it's hard to not like Jason Kelsey,
But did
honestly.
people
So
forget
I'm okay
about
with
a
that.
guy named Irving? Why am I blanking on his first name?
Michael Irvin.
Michael Irving. Michael
You
Irvin.
hate I loved Michael
Yeah,
Irvin.
but
I
yeah,
miss
but
him.
how
I
much?
miss
Yeah,
him
but
so
how
much.
much? I do not. How much of a homer is he? And he's been on TV for a while, right? He's no longer on the network, but how much of a homer was he on the Cowboys? Every year, that's what he picked.
Yeah,
Is Cowboys Super Bowl? This like they're former players, so in a sense, you excuse it. But him, it just got tired. Like if Jason Kelsey is going to talk like this after 5 6 years of on being on TV, then people are going to get tired of it as well, right?
yeah,
You still want someone to be objectively,
Michael Irving was very nauseating, and all he would
yeah,
do was just
yeah,
yell and yell. And there was that few episodes where
how
like he's
about them
crying on
Cowboys?
TV about
I love
they're
it.
my boys. It's like you gotta put.
No,
It's
no,
like
no, no.
shut up, man. Like I get it, bro. It's like we're not the '90s anymore. It's enough now with this garbage. Like
And
move on.
Roger, I'll let you tick off on the Kyle Pitts stats this week. How did your boy do this week?
What was it? 3 catches, 20 yards. Troy,
25.
Troy. I
Oh,
see three
sorry
for
about that.
20.
25.
Why are you adding 5 yards for him when he doesn't deserve it? It's the box. Nacc put whoever put the box score here in our show notes for our episode. It clearly says 3 for 20. It's from
Yeah,
ESPN. Don't try
yeah.
to juke the
Six
stats
point
like in
Sorry,
the
seven yard
I
wire.
meant four
average, like
targets. I meant four
Don't
targets.
try
six
to
point
juke the
seven yard
stats like in the
average, like
wire.
long of 11. Like he's really, really, really
I,
like. I tried to help him out and say like this is his last dance. Okay, it's only 2 weeks in, but
let's
Jesus,
Guys,
he's really not
you're
helping
his
us
tapping his
out.
first
back. You're
week
tapping
was
his back like
good.
you're
His
Draymond
second
Green
was
He's
on
subpar.
Kevin
Can we
Durant.
just
he's
can we
really
can
not
we
helping us
push the
out, man.
brakes over here,
He's
okay? Can we just push the brakes? when you guys like trade when Jason Kelce is having a really bad year so far, and like all the top end guys that you expected to play well from the tight end position are not doing well at all. You're
Yeah.
gonna
So
focus on
you
Kyle
said
Pitts.
I'm
You're
you
sorry.
gonna
said
I
Jason
tried not to
Kelsey.
laugh.
Yeah, I
I
saw you
switched to
too. I was
Travis.
like, do I
You're
correct
gonna
him?
focus on
Do I
Kyle
correct
Pitts. You're
him?
gonna
Do I
kick a
say
guy while he's
Travis?
down. He's already dead. Leave him alone.
But Bijan looks
Yeah, Bijan was nice.
really, really good.
Yeah.
6.9
Oof,
yards per carry last
amazing.
night. I think they just got to give him the ball more, man. I
Yeah,
think they just
yeah,
got to run him
yeah,
more.
yeah.
I think he still did have 20 carries.
It's because Algiers is a
I
good
believe, or
player. That's
14.
14.
why
No, only 14 carries.
Yeah.
14
Algiers is a
carries,
good player.
4 catches, only 18 touches. I think those numbers got to be 20 and above
I think
every
he's
single
really got to
game.
he's got to get more involved in the receiving game. I feel. I think that's where he can really blow up. Like get him out in the flat and make him make some moves like he always does. But
Guys,
overall, he just needs more touches. Period.
I have one more quick question. It's an important one. Who's more embarrassing to Italian? As there are two Italian residents of this podcast, who's more
You're like pseudo
embarrassing?
Italian, man. Get out of here. Like you have much of a say as everybody else.
No, I don't. Who is more embarrassing to Italian culture? Big
You're
Dom
practically Sicilian. Get out of here.
or Tommy DeVito's agent, Sean Stellatos?
It's Tommy DeVito's agent. Because he's just like the
Well,
stereotype, like of whatever, like big. I'm not like Big Dom, I'm not
Tommy
a hater of Big
DeVito's
Dom. Big
agent
Dom
is
is
in the Italian Sports American Hall of Fame.
They
So
gave
just
him a
put
green
some
jacket.
respect on his name,
yeah.
okay?
That's
Actually, no,
nah.
I got another one for you. Out of all those, it's actually for me. It's Nick Sirianni.
Sirianni. I was gonna say
Oh, he's
Sirianni is
brutal,
probably
man.
He's more,
we'll go off the book on that one.
I think I saw a reel on TikTok or something like that. They were interviewing Nick Sirianni at the end of the game yesterday, and Big Dom was like in the corner in the back.
Yes, watching that.
You saw that? Yeah,
Yes,
you saw that,
yes.
and I saw the caption like Big Dom always looks for the camera and he always tries to get in, and then like the camera panned a little bit to the left, and you see him just move a little bit
Oh my
over.
god,
That
this
way,
guy's brutal.
dude,
That's funny.
it's. I'll never understand how he operates in that entire
20
organization.
years, dude. No, but apparently the players swear by him,
They
man. He's been
love
there
him,
for like
man. They
20, 20.
love Big
It's
Dom.
great.
They
It's good
love
for
Big
them.
Dom.
Yeah.
Well, that about wraps it up for our recap of the Monday night game. We're going to go into our love hate segment for week 3. Before we get into our week 3 picks, we'll just follow up on our week 2 picks and see how they did. So Fab, you had Malik Neighbors and Godwin as your loves last week, and I think you nailed it. Neighbors with 28.7 and Godwin with 24.7 points.
Just for the
Um,
record, they both finished respectively wide receiver 1 and wide receiver 3 on the week.
yeah, you definitely nailed it out of the park.
Those are
And I
great
believe
picks.
someone was saying he's going to finish wide receiver 2. I don't believe that. I'm like,
Yeah, I was skeptical of him finishing top 20 last week. So
I'll
you
be honest
definitely
though, like, but and we're gonna stop on this point. He got like a 75% or 65% target share. Neighbors,
Yeah, he's going to
with
continue to get that.
yeah, he's gonna
like
they're gonna
that
feed
was
him.
He's
They're
going to
just gonna
continue to
there's
get
there's
that.
no one else,
I
right? They're
want to
gonna
say it's
feed him.
unsustainable. I hope it is sustainable because it's beautiful, but at the same time, like it's a ridiculous
Well,
amount.
the target share will be sustainable, but maybe the production like this might not be. But
No, definitely not. Definitely not.
your hates last week were
Yep.
Devontae Adams and Aaron Jones. Well, Aaron Jones, you kind of hit. He finished with RB 29 with a 9.8 points. He did get injured though, so that
Yeah.
definitely affects that.
Yep.
But Devontae Adams finished with 26 points, so
I'm very
he
happy to
had
take
a
that L. I'm happy to see him getting some points.
yeah. Raj, last week you had your boy J.K. Dobbins, which you didn't start, but definitely was in your love column and with 20.1 points.
I started James
You
Cook instead. It was actually the right move. He
It
had
was
28 points.
Yep.
definitely, yeah,
Yeah,
he definitely had the right move. But you also loved Cody Parkinson, who had 2.2
it was
points,
rough.
laid an egg. I was actually pretty excited about him to start him in
Yeah,
one of my
Yeah,
leagues,
me too.
and I was disappointed. Your hates for last week, you nailed them both. Terry McLaurin, 8.2 points. That looks like a weird offense there in Washington. George Pickens, also 4.9 points. Could have been
I
could have
knew you
taken
were
an
Yeah.
gonna
L
put the
there.
Yeah.
Could have taken
Yeah.
an
asterisk.
L
Could have
there.
been.
Could have taken an L there if the
Could have
referees
I
been.
knew
weren't
you were gonna
such
put the
losers.
asterisk.
I had to. Come on, I had to say it. I had to say it.
Dude,
But
I
definitely in
love
the
the way George Pickens was playing, and I was skeptical, man. And like
Yeah.
watching him play, it's really really nice. So
yeah, he
I'm
but he
happy to
worked
take
with
the L
he
if
worked
when it
with
happens.
the that route god in
Yeah,
the offseason. He really polished up on his route running.
looks really
I
good.
had to obviously like I had a feeling he was going to do well, but had to see it to believe it. And he's
Yeah,
definitely not just a go route guy anymore
agreed.
for sure. In my love column, I missed them out. I missed them both. Jerome Ford. That one was such a weird one to me. They ran
Mm,
Deonta Foreman, even though he was at like 2.7 yards per carry, and Ford was at like 7.6. So it was inexcusable how they just took Ford out of the game. There was no injury to be heard of either. They just preferred going with Foreman. And I also had Justin Herbert, but Herbert also got a little bit banged up in that game, and Dobbins kind of took over. And in my hate, I had uh, the Packers wide receivers, which combined all four of them for 20 points, or the top three for 20 points. And I also had Chase, who finished with 7.5 points. So hit on those ones. So we were pretty. Looks like we're batting right around 80% in our predictions or love hate. So with that
up
being
here.
said, let's see what we do in week 3. So I'm going to start off with you, Raj. Who are the people who you love this week?
Yeah, the first matchup I love this week is Kenneth Walker or Zach Charbonnet against the Miami Dolphins. Walker was actually a game time decision last week with the oblique injury, so I think if you're a game time decision, it's very likely that you're probably going to play the next week. Likely means that he was almost ready to go. But it's a matchup I love. Dolphins are giving the third most fantasy points to running backs so far over the first 2 weeks. And they just got gashed by James Cook to the tune of 3 TDs. And I also think with Skylar Thompson there, the game script might not be great for them. There could be a lot of 3 and outs for that offense, which would give the ball back more often to the Seahawks. So even if Walker can't play, I'm a big fan of Zach Charbonnet. He's even more of a PPR play there. He already has 7 catches for 60 yards. So if you have Walker and he's playing, absolutely start him. He had a great week 1 against Denver with 100 rushing yards. So if he's available, play him. If not, Charbonnet is a great replacement on that front.
Yeah, hard to disagree. Definitely hard to disagree with that. And anyone else you have for this week?
Yeah, so the second one I like, big shocker, but I really think Andy Dalton is going to have a big week. I'm gonna
I like
call
this call.
I'm gonna
I
call
like
the
this a lot.
Panthers to win this week.
Wow.
And I listened to Dave Canales'
Can
reason.
I just wait? Let me just stop you right there with just
Yeah,
a quick question.
yeah.
If they do win this week, what happens to Bryce Young?
So that's a good segue because I the more I read about this and the more I listen to what Dave Canales says, Bryce Young is done in Carolina. He is not, unless there's an
Wow.
injury. I think he is done in Carolina. What he said makes a lot of sense. When you're in a team culture, when there's veterans on that team, which there are quite a bit, when there's a decent amount of high expectation based off the signings they made on the offensive line and the wide receivers that are there that they brought in, and the fact that Dan Morgan is an ex Carolina Panther legend linebacker, Canales QB guru. The way Canales said is he owes it to the team. He owes it to the people in that locker room to give them the best shot to win. And
To
from the
win.
tape he saw, it seemed like Bryce Young does not give them the best shot to win. Not only from a skill perspective, but it sounds like from a body language perspective, he seemed really down. He seemed really down on himself. He wasn't rallying the troops. So I think it makes a lot of sense. And I see QB changes galvanizing the team. So I really like Dalton in this place. We know he's an absolute pro. His lone start last year, he was 34 of 58 for 361 yards, 2 TDs at Seattle, and he's facing a Raiders defense that's middle of the pack that I think they could be got. And I think this is a game. This is a game, a get right game for the Panthers. So I love Dalton in this matchup. I love this matchup for him more so than, let's say, Deshaun Watson for the versus the Giants, or Caleb Williams versus the Colts, or even Stafford over the Niners.
Does this prop up Deontay Johnson as well? Now that
Yes,
Dalton's starting? Yeah.
One
totally.
million
He's a
Yeah, I
percent.
don't
pro,
think
man.
so.
He's been
He's a pro. Like Dalton's had a really solid career for what he's done. He's an absolute pro. He's gonna get guys involved. Like we saw what he did with. I think he had a bit of. He must have had a bit of a decent amount of Ocho Cinco together, and even in Dallas, he was able to sustain some players as well
guys.
when he was
At
there.
the end of the day, he could see over the offensive line, so maybe it's going to be easier for him to
It's a
actually
great point.
see his receivers as well. So you're saying, to your point, you think he's done. What if? Okay, so now let me reverse the question. What if Andy Dalton struggles? He comes in, throws 3 picks his first game, really does not look good. Then what do you do?
they're
because
gonna
that's the
ride. I
dilemma,
think they're
right?
gonna ride. I think they're gonna ride this, and like I don't have the stats in front of me, but I feel like I always remember Andy Dalton taking good care of the football, and he's a veteran player. He's not going to again like you say. I saw some highlights. Bryce Young had some jump throws that were batted down. He had a lot of passes that were batted down last week against the Chargers. Like he plays small. He obviously is small, but he plays small as well. So I think
Hmm.
the floor for the Panthers gets risen by at least 20, 30, if not 50% just by having Dalton there. What I hope doesn't happen, but I wouldn't be surprised is Bryce Young eventually gets moved to third string, which tends to happen when a coach is absolutely done with a specific quarterback. Probably they don't want him to get injured. If they end up doing that, they don't want him to get injured. They want to use him as trade bait, and I think it's
True,
unfortunate.
Canales never picked them, right? That
He
they
never
always
picked
say
him.
that
Neither did Dan
the coach
Morgan.
wants to always decide. Yeah, the coach always wants to decide who they take, and I think that's a big component of
And
it.
and apparently they consulted with ownership as well to make the move. So
Interesting.
What about you, Fab? Who you love this week?
Tony Pollard. I think he was on our hate list last
Tony
week.
Pollard.
Tony
Pollard.
Pollard. Yeah, Tony Pollard. He was on our hate list last week, but he still put up about 15 fantasy points against a pretty, well, you would assume it to be tough, the New York Jets defense. So that was good enough for low end RB2. His snap share has been going up each week, 61% week 1, 67 in week 2. And like I said last week was the Jets, he saw a lot more carries and targets than Tyjae Spears. 22 total touches versus 8. So quite a big difference in volume right there. I think
Yeah,
he's the
Spears got hurt.
well, all the same. I think it's important to notion that they did lean on him quite a bit. So I think going forward, he's going to be the committee lead back, and he has a great matchup
Agree.
versus Green Bay, who are giving up the most fantasy points to running backs after 2 weeks. I'm very comfortable
Not the
starting him
Colts.
as the Green Bay Packers. I said Colts.
No, but it's not the Colts that are giving the most fantasy points running back so far.
Unless my stats are
Oh wow.
off.
Oh no, I believe you. I'm shocked
Yeah.
about that because they've been so bad. Sorry.
Well, it's a very favorable matchup. Very
Well,
favorable.
Barkley scored 3 TDs on them,
Oh
right?
yeah.
Yeah,
In week 1,
True.
so that kind of skews the stats a little bit.
all the same. Tony
Yeah,
Pollard.
yeah, no, it's
I believe
that
it's.
is
I think he's in a very good spot now to put up some very decent RB1 numbers, and also he's a very good buy low candidate too. I know he might not
Mm.
be necessarily from a trade perspective. I know he might not be necessarily be a big time name right now, but you look at his matchups coming up. He has Miami next week. He goes on bye. Indy doesn't scare you. Buffalo too, and for the rest of the season, it's a pretty decent schedule as well. So I like Tony Pollard this week to definitely outperform his ranking right now, and just in general put up some decent RB1 numbers. I see. I start him as a low in RB1. That's where I have him.
Fab, are you
yeah.
are you sorry, Nacc, are you surprised how much he's getting way more run than Spears? And not good point on the fact that Spears was
Yeah,
injured game 1, but game 2, but game 1 it was all Pollard, or he had a line share of the carries.
I think yeah, I am surprised. The thing with Pollard is that and because I had him last year, and it was a big jump between. I mean, he had all the carries last year for Dallas because Zeke wasn't there anymore, and the previous year was. I don't want to say it was split. I think it was more of like a 60-40 share. And you saw how much better it was for Pollard
Yeah,
when he had less of a lion's share. He was much more fresh.
Yep.
Last year was also battling with injury for a majority of the
exactly.
season too,
Came
and
back from an
they
injury.
overworked him.
Yeah.
He's going to be much more efficient having less carries. I think 22 total touches is right in the sweet spot. Like this is. Let me look at his stats last week. He had 17 carries and 5 receptions. So that's nice. That's good. That's where he needs to be. I feel like that's pretty solid. It might even be even too many carries, but the week before he had 16. So he's right around there, and I think that's kind of where he needs to be. He can't be the workhorse. You can't give him 20 touches, 20 rushes, 25 rushes, all that stuff. He needs to be able to use his to use his efficiency to be able to break those tackles in the outside, right? So I think this is where they need him to be.
Yeah, I think we're just coming to the conclusion that Taji Spears is just not the guy. He's just maybe he's just he was hyped up. He was behind Henry. He just might not be that guy to take over a backfield. He might just be that complementary piece in an offense, which is okay. But
Yeah.
I think they drafted him thinking he'd be much more than that. So
I was weary when I heard that Pollard signed with the Titans. And have Pollard and Tajee Spears, and I feel like they're a similar player in that sense. But I think it does work out a little bit. I think it works very well in this offense. How you do have them in very similar yet different roles. Like Pollard can definitely tote the rock a little bit more, I find, but at the same time, they need that guy to spell him a little bit, and Tajee Spears is really good for that. Raj,
Sorry, we there was a little pause there, but we're back. This is an important week for Will Levis. I think if he craps the bed again and does that BS that Brian Callahan said he's been doing the past 2 weeks, I think he's getting benched. Mason Rudolph is
Mason
the backup, right?
Rudolph
oh
Mason
season.
my
Rudolph sees
god!
Rudolph to the
And
Red-Nosed
we were
Reindeer
talking
season.
about Will Levis in the beginning of the season, like, yeah, he could be a solid RB. I'm like, no, it's not the.
Wow, he's got to be stop being an idiot with the
But these
football.
guys
Like
got
those two
short
plays were
leashes,
really
man.
horrible.
Like these
He's
second
being
year
an idiot.
QBs, like they got short leashes
Yeah, but
though.
these first year head coaches, man, they don't want to be
Yeah.
they don't want to get 0-3, 0-4, and that's not a good look when you're starting a new team.
And Daniel Jones is gonna be starting until like week 8. It's perfect.
Well, that's again, we always have to name Daniel Jones in this
Why?
podcast.
We
We
didn't
still
we
oh,
didn't do we didn't do it yesterday, so we're
Yeah,
good.
we name him every time. I think you bring
Did
him
we
up at
name?
least
No,
once.
I
Yeah,
mean, come
every
on, in my
time.
mouth,
no,
that's
we.
for
It's not
sure.
a we issue anymore.
Yeah,
It's a fab issue.
it's a fat issue.
Guys, I don't see the problem is right now. This is a running joke. It's gonna go on until the end of time.
Who else you got, Fab?
I got DJ Moore. Um,
Whoa!
what? Why is that a whoa? Why is
No,
that a whoa?
go. I want to hear this.
I like DJ Moore. DJ Moore, I feel like doesn't get any respect at all. The first 2 games this season he hasn't been lights out yet, but you can see him and Caleb are getting more comfortable. Obviously, he had a huge snap share last week in week 2 with his other reception competitors in the name of Keenan Allen and Adunze. Well, the Adunze played, but you could tell he was a little bit hurt, and Keenan Allen wasn't there. He got 10 targets, and they faced the Colts this week in a very favorable matchup. The Colts let Malik Willis throw a touchdown in week 2, and I think Caleb is better than Malik Willis. I think we can all agree. Colts currently are also giving up the 4th most fantasy points to wide receivers 2 weeks in the NFL season. And with Adunze and Allen still banged up and not 100%, I think DJ is in a solid spot to put up some serious wide receiver 2 numbers this week. And I also think he breaks his touchdown drought and gets his first tutty of the season.
Yeah, that honestly, I think the same. I think the same thing. I think you're going to finally be rewarded for drafting a DJ Moore as your wide receiver 2 this week. I do like something's got to give in that offense. Like if Caleb can't throw a touchdown in 3 weeks in the first 3 weeks of the season, and now you're playing a Colts team that's just giving up points left, right, and center. I don't know, man. This question's got to be asked if this duo can't show up on Sunday.
My only concern was how bad they looked against the Texans, and I don't know. I felt they didn't have a lot of chemistry. DJ Moore seemed really, really pissed on the sideline for like the 3 or 4 misses that Caleb had. But this could be another get right game against the Colts defense that is very, very bad so far.
It was a
Yeah, that's what it
better
feels. That's what it
showing
looks
than
like.
week 1. That's how I'm
I
looking at it,
agree.
right? It was a
I
better
agree.
showing than week 1,
I
albeit
agree.
minimally. It's a better showing than week 1. And I
Agreed.
think sometimes you need to go up against you need to have a very good matchup to really crank out all that rust that might be over there and really start to create that connection that you want to have with your wide receiver and your quarterback. So I think this could be that week for them, and well, obviously I hope so as well. And the fact that he should be soaking up a majority, if not all, the targets too, is definitely going to help his cause. It's week 3 now. It's a little bit more time in that offense. Like a lot can change from one week to the next in an offense in the NFL, right? So I think I'm being cautiously optimistic that DJ Moore definitely pulls it out this week and definitely gives you what you've been hoping him to get. I wouldn't be surprised if he has the same stat line as last week, which is 6 receptions, 50 yards, but throwing a touchdown in that or something along that lines. I think you're going to be very happy with his performance this week.
Nice. We'll get to my loves this week. I've got a rookie here that I love this week in Keon Coleman. I know he only had 1 target in week 2, but that was a very a weird game versus the Dolphins. The Bills also had a lot of success running the ball, and those Thursday games are usually weird fantasy wise. There's always something weird stat line, so I wasn't too shocked about that. But the Jags have given up double digit fantasy points to the top two wide receivers in week 1 and 2. And they give up the eighth most fantasy points to wide receivers through 2 weeks. So Allen usually cooks in prime time, and the Bills are going to have had 11 days since their last game. So I think Keon Coleman uh, finds the end zone, first NFL touchdown, has a solid game, somewhere along the lines, 5 catches, 72 yards and a touchdown, and he'll give you some solid wide receiver 3 or low end wide receiver 2 numbers this week.
I hope so. I feel like a lot of the I feel like the rookie wide receivers had a big resurgence in week 2. Like the guys that were supposed to perform performed. You know, I hope that continues with Keon Coleman, because he definitely comes highly touted with out of with his draft capital and what they invested in him and all that.
And then my second one is kind of a little duo. It's going to be George Kittle and Brandon Ayuk versus they're at LA Rams. CMC is on IR, as we all know. Debo Samuel slated to miss a few games as well. So both Kittle and Ayuk are going to see the majority of the passing targets. I know Juwan Jennings is going to get involved as well. And then you have, there's Mason on the ground. But the offense, the Rams offense is going to be um, significantly shorthanded. Excuse me. There's that offensive line that's still banged up from top to bottom. Now there's going to be no Cup or Puka Nakua, so similar to your point earlier, Raj. I think with less opportunities on the offensive side becomes more opportunity for the opposing team's offense. So I think both Kittle and Ayuk have great games. I think it's going to be a breakout game for Ayuk in
Yeah,
2024. He's got his first two
Yeah,
games on first two games where they weren't really
that was his training
crazy
camp.
stat wise.
yeah,
Exactly.
yeah,
Those
exactly.
were his training camps. So I think both Ayuk and Kittle easily see the end zone in week 3 against LA.
Nacc, you were saying that about McVay, the retirement rumors. Was that just you, like thinking that he might go back to, like thinking that he might retire, or like it's
Was
actually a
that
rumor?
another he's done
Yeah,
chapter?
Remember the last year that they had, that they
yeah,
went they were really
Yeah,
terrible,
that's
and
true.
like all the rumors started, and it
yeah,
was kind of true. He was contemplating retirement. So there was already some things I saw on Twitter, that rumblings of, and now they're gonna have a, because obviously the firepower is not there. Like they're 0-2 already to start the year. Now they got the 49ers. Like things are not looking great for them. So the season could get away really quickly. And there was already rumblings of, they're gonna have a terrible season, miss the playoffs, and the rumors of him McVay retiring again are going to start swirling. So it was more, I guess, everyone being speculative on Twitter. There's no like real news out there. But I remember last time it happened. That's kind of how it happened. A really terrible
yeah.
season.
This could go off the rails for them quickly.
Oh yeah, it could go off really quickly. And now,
I think we're getting off the rails, not
Yeah,
for
it's
anything. Like
unfortunate.
we're looking at the amount of injuries that they have
yeah,
right after week 2, and it's all their big guys. And it's funny, the only knock on wood, the only guy that doesn't seem to get injured is the one that everyone's most concerned about getting injured at the beginning of the season, and
Matthew
Kyron
Stafford.
Williams.
Stafford. Oh,
Who?
I
Kyron
thought you were going to
Williams.
say Matthew Stafford as well.
No,
Yeah,
Kyron Williams. Everyone's like, oh, he's going to get injured, and then like Blake Corum's going to take over, and it's.
Dude, there's still
that
16 games left, or
I'm
yeah,
just
it's,
15
saying. I'm
it's
games
just
so
left.
saying.
Don't
long.
Like
worry,
It's so long.
it's gonna happen.
he was the first on everyone's list, and right now he's still there after 2 weeks when the entire team is decimated. So let's hope it continues for Kyron Williams and all of the Kyron Williams owners out there.
So that's our loves for week 3. Let's get into the people we don't like so much and the ones we hate for week 3. So we'll start off with you, Raj.
Yeah, I don't like the matchup this week with for Trevor Lawrence at Buffalo. We talked about coaches might maybe on the hot seat in Nick Sirianni. I really think Doug Peterson is going to be on the hot seat if they
He
start
has to be.
0-3.
Mm-hmm.
Offense looks really off. Trevor Lawrence, he got all this money in the off season, and he doesn't look any better. He faced 17 pressures and was sacked 4 times against Myles Garrett and the Browns defense last week. And the Jags, it looks like they're getting a resurgent. They're going to face a resurgent Von Miller and Ed Oliver, who were amazing against the Miami Dolphins last Thursday night. So don't like the matchup for Lawrence. He's completing 51% of his passes. Ingram is injured. Christian Kirk doesn't look good. Thankfully, Brian Thomas has had a really good start to his season.
Mm-hmm.
They're not able to run the ball very efficiently either.
No.
Still seeing issues with Travis Etienne and short yardage. So this is one matchup I really don't like. Trevor Lawrence at Buffalo.
Yeah, hard to disagree with that. I think I have to be on board with that too. To be honest with you, Trevor Lawrence to me has not come as advertised. I know we spoke about him throughout previous episodes, and Roger, you
had the Daniel Jones comparison. That you remember you shared with us that side by side of his
whatever.
stats.
I showed stats. Like that was just more to get you guys talking because I don't like that stuff, and to be honest with you, I don't believe much in it either. But
I don't know anymore.
Sure.
Honest, I don't know anymore either.
Like, well, it's I don't want to compare him to Daniel Jones. I think it's a different product altogether. But I just feel like you had a very good point in saying that there might be some meat left on the bone, and I think this is who he is. I think you're going to get this type of quality of a quarterback week in and week out, and the amount of money that they threw at him for me was very interesting to say the least. I mean, listen, I'll root for the guy because you don't want anyone to not succeed, in my opinion. But I don't know. My opinion on him is not very high, unfortunately, and I hope he turns it around. And it might not be with the Jaguars. We've seen it before where quarterbacks go elsewhere and they do very well.
No, he just signed a big deal.
With that dead cap money. He's not going anywhere. That's
maybe not right away. I'm saying in the future.
I don't know. I can't really pinpoint what he's not great at. Like I was watching a bit of that game and he missed a few slants to like wide open stuff, but I can't pinpoint exactly.
You can't put your finger on it.
We need
Seth to come back on the pod and tell us what's wrong with Trevor Lawrence.
I can't put my finger on it, but it's not what we advertised when he came out of Clemson and they were saying he was going to be the next Peyton Manning.
Who else don't you like this week, Raj?
This one might be a shocker to you guys. I know you guys really liked him in the offseason, but I don't like the matchup for Zamir White against the Panthers. Hasn't been very good so far this year. Very mediocre yards per carry, 3.1 yards per carry. He had 9 carries against the Ravens in a game where the game script, it was still available for them to run the ball. And they threw the ball, like Minshew actually looked really good. I think they threw the ball almost 40 times in that game.
He was super effective that game.
He was super effective.
Very efficient.
Yeah.
Very efficient.
And it's funny, I was reading on Twitter, Antonio Priest was saying about Zamir White, I'm going to keep pumping him up. Our goal is to get 20 touches and more to him. That was the goal this week. It didn't happen. That's going to be the goal every week while he's a starting running back and I'm here. Well, Alexander Mattison, it seems like he's getting as much run and seems like he might be as effective. So I know it's an easy matchup to look at. Hey, the Panthers have been god-awful against the run. Hey, the Panthers are just god-awful, period. But it's a matchup I do not like this week, Zamir White against the Panthers. And I think it's one of those that you don't want to get got.
Yeah, and honestly, a lot of people had him pegged as a solid RB2 this year.
Yeah.
And so far, people have been massively disappointed, to put it lightly. What about you, Fab?
I got CJ Stroud at Minnesota. So I know right off the bat, I know you're not sitting Stroud. So I want to make that very clear. You have him, you're starting him, even in a 2 QB league, you're starting him. In a 1 QB league, you're most likely starting him unless you have another quarterback that is arguably better. But you're obviously not starting Stroud. I just don't like the matchup. I don't think he's going to get you those QB1 numbers this week. Last week, he played Chicago and had an okay game. 260 passing yards with 1 passing touchdown for 15 points. Not horrible, but really not in the 20 to 25 points per week range that you drafted him to get you. And without the rushing upside that we spoke about with a lot of these fantasy quarterbacks, without having that rushing upside week in and week out, matchups like this will hurt a bit, where he does face a very good defense. Minnesota gives up the least amount of points to quarterbacks and the first 2 weeks of the season. And last week, they held Brock Purdy got sacked 6 times. San Francisco lost to Minnesota. So I think it's going to be a rough day for CJ, and I think he's going to finish outside the top 15 again. Last week he finished as QB 16. So I think you're going to get a little bit more of the same this week.
See, all those people, those top 5 numbers, he's not even going to finish in the top 10 this year in QB numbers because of that rushing that doesn't favor him. That doesn't favor him. And honestly, just as a side note, Minnesota looks really
Yeah,
good this
man.
year.
Yeah,
Man,
man, they are.
everyone like counted them out, and Sam Darnold is here, and the other guy, like he was always slated to start, but everyone's like, oh man, do they look really, really solid?
And Brian Flores calls a hell of a game.
Yeah,
He's a
Yeah.
really good defensive coordinator.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
that entire
No,
offense is humming right now, and even the defense is playing really well. So
yeah,
if you're a Minnesota fan, you're excited considering that you lost Kirk Cousins, but the team is still rolling along pretty well. So
yeah. It looks really good.
yeah.
And who else do you hate this week?
Drake London. I know last night he had a very nice game, but I think we're going to have to pump the brakes on his coming out party a little bit. He salvaged his fantasy day last night with a very late fourth quarter touchdown. Great throw, great grab, but this week he gets a much tougher matchup in Kansas City with their stud corners, in particular McDuffie.
Yep.
You likely drafted Drake London to be your wide receiver 1, high end wide receiver 2, like on the low end wide receiver 1 scale. And I think you'll have to wait another week before you can start seeing those returns. It's not going to happen against Kansas City. I am fading him hard this week as a flex play at best. And I might even consider benching him if you have better options.
Benching him, really?
Yep.
Will he ever be a WR1, high end WR2?
I thought this year was going to be the year. And I had
Well,
spoken about this at length.
He finished WR16 last year. So high
Is that
end.
high
That's a
end?
high end. That's a high end. That's a 2.
That's a
You're in the
2.
Mid.
middle there, right?
That's a
a
2.
You're in the
If we
middle.
consider a wide receiver 1 to be 1 to 12 for a 12-team league, then he is right at the cusp of that.
They usually it is calculated
Yeah,
on 12, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
that's a
exactly.
high end 2. He did finish high end 2
Yeah,
last
it's a
year
high end
with
2.
with really
Well,
not like with really shoddy QB
that's
play last year.
like it. You look at all of the variables that go involved into having an effective wide receiver season, right? Like wide receivers are the only position where, as much as it's important to be a good wide receiver, a lot of your production comes from outside of your control, right? Like quarterbacks can pass the ball, they have control on that. Running backs can run the ball, they have control on that. Wide receivers require balls to be thrown in their vicinity to a degree to be effective. Drake London has shown that in the first 2 seasons of his NFL career, he's been able to be an effective wide receiver. So then you throw a competent quarterback in the mix like Kirk Cousins, who can dial it down, who can throw it properly, who can target the receivers the way they need to be targeted. The only way you can assume that this doesn't work out is if Drake London is having a bad season. So at the beginning of, listen, he had a tough matchup in week 1. Week 2, he got bailed out by a late fourth quarter touchdown. But in general, that offense right now is not looking as polished as it should be. And I feel like they're going to have another tough matchup against Kansas City. So I still reserve optimism for the entirety of the season with Drake London, just for how he is and who he's playing with and all that stuff. But I don't think it's going to start next week.
Yeah. I felt
You had something to add, Raj?
yeah, Darnell Mooney, that deep pass he had, I felt
dude.
he looked more dangerous than Drake London. I
He
felt
did. He
like
did look
that
more
was a
dangerous.
sick zig.
I
I said
agree.
it. I
Yeah.
think I said it yesterday. That offense suits Mooney
Yeah,
perfectly. I
Yeah.
find because quick hitters on
exactly,
slants or like in routes, and then
exactly.
that
Hold on.
1 or 2 go route a game. I think it fits them perfectly. That
Like
offense.
Mooney and London both had 7 targets. Drake caught 6 of them. But obviously the yards are what counts, right? So
I don't think London gets open. I don't think he knows how to get open very well. I think London and Pitts don't know how to run routes properly.
Well, that route that he ran at the end was a
was
bijou.
very nice.
Consistently though.
It was a nice route. No, you're right.
Yeah.
Consistently, but that
Yeah.
route he
No,
ran
for
for the
sure.
touchdown was beautiful.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're gonna end on my 2 hates for the week. So my first hate is Anthony Richardson. Again, kind of like CJ Stroud, you're definitely most likely going to have to start an Anthony Richardson, but he has not looked great as a thrower at all. His accuracy took a huge dive in week 2. He's at 50% completion. He threw 3 INTs versus a Green Bay team that gave up almost 300 passing yards and 21 points to Jalen Hurts in week 1. They get a Bears team this week. giving up the fifth fewest points to two QBs and held, like we just mentioned, CJ Stroud to 15 points on Sunday night. So if you're like me, again, you're going to have no choice to start him, but I'm not expecting a repeat of that week one performance where he had 30 points. I think it's going to be a really volatile year for Anthony Richardson. He's going to have to get better as a passer in order to open up his rushing upside, I feel.
It's going to be a lot of feast or famine with Anthony Richardson, I think, and
Yeah, you're
that's
going to get
not
30 points
yeah,
or 9,
and
you know?
that's going to be such a frustrating part. And at the worst part is at the end of the season, he's going to finish as like a top 10 QB, but then you're going to have games where you lost because of him because he only got you like 10 points.
So, Nacc, do you think he's in every week start, regardless of matchup?
Yeah, because
The upside,
first of all, that's the QB you drafted, right? If you're drafting in a one QB league, you probably don't have better. And in a two QB league, your third QB, like actually in my I have Darnold as my QB3. So there are going to be some
Yeah.
times where I'm going to look at it and be like,
Yep. Yep.
this is the time where, you know what, I know Darnold has a nice floor,
Better
whereas
floor. Yep.
AR could be like he could get, like you said, 35 points, or you know throw a TD and have three INTs and finish with 11.
The
So
rushing hasn't been amazingly outrageous so far, in my
well,
opinion.
the first
The
game was
first game,
was
yeah.
decent,
yeah.
Yeah,
but
the
yet
first game was decent.
week two was barely any rushing.
Yeah.
So I have Anthony Richardson in one of my leagues, not Bush League. It's a work league. So if I have any coworkers that are listening, you guys know what I'm talking about right now. I have Anthony Richardson and I have Jordan Love as my QB2. Like this week, I'm looking for Baker Mayfield on the waiver wire, and I'm gonna have to drop. I'm gonna have to carry three QBs in a one QB league right now, which is bothering me tremendously. Like it's gonna be stupid. But
Get
You
on the
drafted
phones.
Jordan Love and
Get
Anthony
on the
Richardson?
phones.
I drafted Anthony Richardson in the 6th round. And then like 2 rounds later, I drafted Jordan Love, and my quarterbacks are stacked. Like, forget it. I'm taking this league, no problem. And like after the first week, I'm like, I'm screwed. What's going on over here?
Get on the phones. Make some trades, baby.
Yep.
And another QB that I don't like in week 3 is going to be Jaden Daniels at Cincinnati. Um, just like his buddy, or all the rookie QBs for that matter, does not have a passing TD through 2 games, and now he gets a Bengals team that gives up the third fewest points to QBs. They kept Mahomes to 151 passing yards and 17 points last week, and rookie QBs generally struggle more on the road. So Daniels figures to continue that trend in week 3. His rushing side helps, but he's becoming more of like a rushing touchdown dependent QB right now to give you those stats. He doesn't look overly great as a passer just yet, not very polished. So I'm weary of him going into Cincy and putting up numbers. So again, in a two QB league, you might be forced to start Daniels, but in a one QB league, you hopefully have better options. And I would go ahead and sit Jaden Daniels, excuse me, this week against Cincinnati.
Agreed.
Yeah, hard to argue with that. We're hating on a lot of quarterbacks this week.
Hey, the NFL stuff. Did you see the stat? It's the number of TDs scored throughout 2 weeks, even around 2 weeks. I think it was 66 before the Monday night game.
Yeah,
I think that's 30 less than last year.
yeah.
I
I
think
thought the
last year was
scores
like
were kind of low.
96.
It's
I thought
gone.
this.
It's
Sorry,
been
Roger. I thought.
decreasing the last 5 years. It's
Yeah.
steadily
Yeah,
decreasing, and
Yes.
this year it took the biggest hit
Yep.
this
yeah,
year. So
yeah.
defense
You
is
see
defense
it.
is up, defense is better right now, and there's always
It's a
that give and take.
shift.
It always
Yep.
exactly it always shifts,
Ebbs and
and
flows, as they call it.
yeah, and this year has been really low. So the QBs take the biggest brunt or the biggest hit from that, and yeah, just not a great matchup for Jaden this week. So that about wraps it up for our love hates this week. A nice Monday recap. Guys, again, please follow us on all the social media platforms: Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Um, Hit us up, comment on all of our posts. Let us know what you think of the show. Let us know if you'd like to see something in particular. And yeah, we will definitely see you next week with some more exciting content. And as I mentioned, a lot of memes going around.
Mm-hmm.
My buddy Fabio is very, very good with the TikTok memes. So guys, please look for that.
I have a lot of bathroom breaks, so it helps.
I think that's a cue the music, Raj. Guys, thank you so much for
Thank
listening
you so much,
again.
guys.
This has
Ask us
been a fun
Sid
week.
Star questions. Ask us some Sid Star questions on social media. We'll answer. Let's go. Let's
And
go.
rate the pod too. Rate on
Yeah,
Apple and
rate it.
Spotify will greatly
Do
help
your
us.
do your job, okay?
Please, it
Do
would
your
help us
duty.
out.
So how many bathroom breaks?
I don't know. Like, do I count on one hand or two?
Oh boy.
Goodbye.
Bye,
Bye,
guys.
guys.